here, poke down, flip, and poke. Sit back. 1, 2, 3. So we're going to step. This takes a little coordination to the reverse diagonal flying. Now we step up and chop. Hold the back of the blade, go to downward posture. Set it up, chop in empty stance, poke. 1, 2, 3. Poke. 1. Okay, so we'll get up to that position, right? So that's a bit of the sequence. We see the downward posture. This is diagonal flying. This is the downward posture. And we poke. Okay. When we're in this position, we have this swing around to do this. We sit back and we do this. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, shake that out. Let's start the sword form again. Just to review, just the first section. Preparation. Step up and press forward. Sit back, turn the corner, and forward, back, and forward. Turn, brush knee and push. Sit back and grab the sword or switch the hands. Bring this hand behind. This is pushing the sword forward. It happens like that and also happens here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Turn and lift up. 1, 2, 3. Flip, you drop your elbow in close so you turn and poke out like this. Okay, that's one piece. Now we step up. We step up or kick the foot up like this, and we switch the sword. The sword does this. So you don't want to hold the sword too tight here. You want the sword to roll between this tiger's mouth. It just has to drop, release, and flip it over. The mistake a lot of people make is that they're holding it with the full grip. Your wrist doesn't turn like that. You have to let the sword pivot within that space. So when you pivot, you time the movement, and then you poke. Wind it up, slice, take it over the top, poke down, sit like this, step up, and chop down. So we're here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So I'm slowing it down and kind of exaggerating the move so you can see actually what happens. Now, that's one series. And then when you get to here, this movement, and this movement is a pretty standard transition in the form. We actually did that over here when we pushed forward here and we went over like this and uppercut and sit back. That's actually a repeat of that series of movements. Okay, so that gives you a sequence to kind of practice. It is, being archived so you can actually revisit that series of movements and try to copy it again. Okay. Now, the diagonal flying movements where we're like this, the diagonal flying is this. So we practice stepping like this or crossing over. Crossing over will also give you the same position with a slight variation of the footwork. So you have to shift your weight and transfer the weight from one leg to the other to create the diagonal flying. So there's two transitions. One's a double one like this, and the hand goes on the top. Don't go underneath like we would do in the fist form, because you don't want your sword to be slicing across where your hand, you want the hand to be out of the way. So that's just a safety measure. If you do a single one, then we do this. Okay, we turn back to center like this, then we turn like this, and we extend in that direction, step out, and poke. So you notice when you poke, you have to go straight, try to keep it on the center line, so it's supported here. So these are just sort of tips in knowing where the sword has to go. So when you're here, the sword actually comes out and spins. It comes out and spins. So we're not putting a lot of strength into the movement, we're just creating a motion. So that's, I think, the most important part of doing any of the forms that we do or sequences we do, is to build a relationship in the body where you're developing tremendous coordination as well as motor skill. So the weapon itself is an extension of the body. Whatever happens sequentially is just an order of movement that is also building, muscle memory, sequential memory, and so forth. And then how you control this type of movement is another type of training. We have the stances that are chopping like this, and you poke, and that's where you would go back to center. If we turn like this, and we shift and separate the hands, you can see that there's a leaning away and a slicing. Now, the slices, if you notice, it's parallel or in line with the body. Don't stop the sword here. Bring it to here. Okay, so there's a, sort of tracking your movement and watching the blade. So when we say hand-eye coordination, your eyes at this point should be tracking the sword so that you know where it's going. This is an important concept, because in the beginning when you're first learning it, you're copying or watching either the video, or you're watching the instructor teaching you what the movements are going to be next. So it's one of those things that you have to avoid once you've learned the sequence, to pay attention to your own movements. Let's see, we have a few minutes. So when we're here, this is your waist cut. This is your angular cut slice. Remember, one of the first classes we talked about, the sword has to slice. Because chopping is not really just a flat movement. It's transitioning from this point to this point, from this point to this point. Even when we push the sword like this, we're not just pushing it, we're slicing. And if you take it over the top, it's a continuation of the slice. So when you practice the movements, take the slices out as a vertical slice and practice just that motion. If you're cutting to the waist, practice that motion. If you're poking, get that extension. So that's, what you have to do to get control of this apparatus, and eventually you'll have much more. Now here, when I flip it like this, it's really dropping my elbow. Okay, so I turn, and I poke, and I flip. It's really this. you let it drop. It's flipping like this. Okay, so those are a few of the training tips, and just work the sequence a bit, and then next time we'll work a little bit more on the sequence. All right, on that note, I'll see you next week on Wednesday, and we're doing this at the second session. Every second session.